I really, really thought this interview was hard to watch. I really thought this interview was interesting. It was a roller coaster ride for me. I can't speak to you, but for me, it was a roller coaster ride where at one point I was feeling like you of like, who cares? Why is this here? But then there were moments. It was like this. It was like this up and down wave type of thing, right? Where I would be like, "Oh, okay, not interested," or not interested, not interested, and then the big thing. All right, cool. It was weird, and then the reverse. Excuse me, the reverse happened too. Where I was like, "Oh, we going up. Oh, this is super interesting. Oh man, that's crazy. Oh, boo, I
What
don't
it
care."
okay. Okay. I still think we don't have enough time to cover all of this today, but when you say there were parts that were interesting, is there anything in particular that you're thinking of as far as what was interesting?
Um, I think a lot of it was interesting. I think the parts about herself were interesting. The parts about her career were interesting. I noticed that she likes labels. She was saying a lot of things that were label based, like, black people this, autistic people that, smart people this. I thought that was very interesting that this clearly very intellectual person
Mm,
was speaking in all of these labels. It seemed like she clings to labels,
mhm.
and I thought that was interesting. Uh, Also, uh, I'm not a college guy, so her learning that she created her own degree, I thought that was interesting. I didn't even
Yeah,
know you could do that. I
I've
got to
always
be
thought that
honest
was
now.
cool.
Now I feel like I got to go create my own degree. You
Oh,
know what I'm
go do
saying?
it.
Like, why I don't got a master's in, you know, blah 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 with a concentration in hip hop? Like,
I've always thought that that was really interesting about her. So going into this, I did know a lot of information about just her life. I used to listen to her podcast, so
yeah, complete opposite for me. I knew
yeah,
very little about her move going into this.
yeah. I used to listen to her podcast. I mean, I'm familiar with her work. I watched all 5 seasons of Insecure. I kind of at one point I was really like into everything that she was doing. I follow her on social. I don't really pay attention now the way I did years ago, but and I don't listen to her podcast anymore, but in the early days of her podcast, there was a lot of like information that she would drop about her life and like her connection to hip hop and all of those things. So yeah. So yeah, I've always thought that her creating her own curriculum and her own degree was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was super fly. And I don't know why she needed us to know that she dated Pusha T and Lupe Fiasco, but I didn't know those, and that is a super interesting
I thought you would find that very
fact. I was
interesting.
like, Lupe and Pusha
I
T?
was watching it and
Okay.
smiling because I was like, I wonder what he's thinking, what he was
Just
thinking
like,
when
all
he
right,
watched this. He watched it before me.
that was interesting. Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. It's clear she has a lot of relationships in the industry, in hip hop specifically. I had a really hard time watching this also because I couldn't figure out, is she trying to be hip hop or is she just that big of a fan of hip hop? Because she clearly is very smart,
Hmm.
but it was like, I don't know if this person is trying to act like someone from the 90s and the 80s or if this is real. Because I also don't believe actors and actresses when they do things by default. I believe that people who are skilled in acting
Hmm.
and have studied acting can turn it on and off. And I couldn't figure out, was this the real deal or was this turning it on and off? Because it went from like very poised and very intellectual to like, yeah, son.
Um,
And that was
no,
kind
I
of
think we
confusing
code
to me.
switch. I think we code switch. I think especially I think you see over the course of the interview, you see her her guard is clearly up in the beginning, especially since they got off to a rocky start. And I think slowly she starts to get more comfortable. So, and I think she kind of said that when she talked about moving to New York and feeling like, oh, these people talk like me. I never really thought about, like, I'm not from New York or whatever, but I never really thought about the fact that, you know, there might be people who speak like me and you know, kind of have that same sauce or however you want to say it, like,
Yeah.
you know. And she was saying, speaking from someone who was growing up in Florida before she moved to a major city. So I don't know that it's. I think that we do code switch. I think I code switch on this podcast. So I think that, you know, and not necessarily on purpose, but when we're speaking about certain things, you know, I, I speak a certain way about it, right? Like things that I feel like I'm intellectually in tune to, I probably speak more like college educated Dion, excuse me, college educated Dash. Or, you know, if we're talking about hip hop beef, I'm probably getting a little bit more, you know, sassy when I speak about things. I'm probably
Mhm.
dropping a lot more curse words or whatever, or N words or what, you know what I mean? Like, I think that we just automatically do that sometimes. And I think she's been pretty consistent over the years with the way she's been. Um, I think that
Yeah, like I
she
said,
is,
I don't follow her. I don't really know much about her, so
and
for me, it was all very new.
any interview that I've ever watched or listened to her do, she's always talked about how connected to hip hop she was and about how she got her start.
Right.
She's mentioned dating rappers before. She hasn't always dropped their names. I'm not really too sure why their
Oh yeah,
names.
she dropped quite a few names.
Right, I know she did, but I don't think she was doing that before, because I even remember when she was on Breakfast Club. This was either right before she did the BET Awards or right after. She was on the Breakfast Club and she was telling some of these same stories, and she didn't drop everybody's name. I was
Gotcha.
actually really surprised that she said all those names and then was like, "What up to Virginia?" And I said, "Oh, but this is a
Yep.
little weird." And,
Yep.
you
Yeah, that was
know,
interesting.
like, I just,
Uh,
okay, like, you talking about dating this man and then saying hi to his wife. I just,
and I guess they're cool like that, but that's what it seemed
maybe,
like.
but
Yeah,
also I could see how that could rub someone the wrong way. So,
absolutely, absolutely. You know, clearly this autism thing has taken off since the interview,
yeah.
and I want to say that was part of what was interesting to me, that she kept clinging to this autism thing. Um, I didn't know they changed the name for Asperger's, so that was interesting. Um, but you know, what's interesting to me about it was the things that she was saying. A lot of it, minus the social cues, I was watching and saying, then I'm autistic too,
Mhm.
and maybe people are gonna come at me for this, but minus the social cues, a lot of the things she was saying about specificity and taking things literally, and the way she speaks to people, I was like, oh yeah, I do that. That's me. And I was like, but I don't necessarily think that stuff is tied to autism. Also, I was around someone very closely who has Asperger's, or whatever the new thing is called. I can't remember. She said it, but I can't
I can't
remember.
remember what it is either.
I
Right.
lived with someone for a few years who has that condition,
Mhm.
or is on that part of the spectrum. I'm not sure the proper wording, so forgive me, audience. Uh, but no, a lot of the things she was saying, not necessarily what translated on the camera. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, the stuff she's saying is true, but when I see you speak, when I look at how you're responding, no, that's not what I have seen with Asperger's. And okay, cool. I see that there's a side of this conversation where it's like, yeah, but JD, everybody like that is not the same.
Right, right.
Cool. But my point in saying all of this is it seemed a little weird to me. And when he asked her, but is this self-diagnosed or is this from a doctor? And she said it's a clinical diagnosis. I was like, okay, I guess we can't argue, but it seemed a little weird. Like it didn't it smelled funny, as my boy Dre would say. So now she's come out and cleared it up, quote unquote, that no, she has never seen a doctor and confirmed this diagnosis. And I was like, all right, so we just seeing whatever on camera then. Because yeah.
You wanna read what she said
Oh,
on
sure. Let me throw this
Instagram?
back on. So
Um
she went live. Go ahead
she
while I
went
put it up.
live last night and she said she wanted to clear up the diagnosis thing. I did do some research, so we can talk about that. But um yeah, so she said she wasn't about to pay $10,000 to get a diagnosis. She did her research. Um and so that's what it is, because she was on live and somebody asked her about that, like, and asked her about the validity of the diagnosis and whatever, since it was something that he questioned. And that was her response. But even her response, and you have her Instagram post that came after the live, but
Yep.
even that response to me was like very indignant, like, well, duh, I'm not gonna pay $10,000 to get diagnosed with autism.
But
What?
then you can't run around saying you're autistic.
Well, I did some research, so why don't you read that and then I'll explain.
Her post says,
Mm-hmm.
Shannon, but have you been clinically diagnosed? Me, yes, there is a clinical diagnosis for autism. He then hung his head and exhaled in frustration because I did not answer his question. That is called deflection. Why? Because I was not going to be pressured by this man who was interrogating me with absolutely zero love for me into proving something to him that by his line of questioning.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's a random L in here. I don't
Yeah, I think
know.
that was an accident.
Okay. Uh, he had already committed to undermining. I understand my response may be confusing to some, but I am clarifying it as I did in my live, and that is enough. Emoji and heart emoji. Yeah.
Oh, yep, there it goes.
Look at you. You know what I mean?
So again, very, I think, to me, you miss you were misleading, and then you came out to, yes, admit that you were misleading or you were deflecting or whatever you want to call it. But
Well, she
Dennis,
says Shannon was deflecting.
oh, sure, okay, you're saying that I thought she was saying she was deflecting.
Hold on.
um
Let me see. Let me see. Hold on. Oh no. Yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. She's saying she was deflecting.
Right, which is fine, right? And I can accept that, but what I have a hard time accepting is, like, at the end you're like, that is enough. Like, you're mad at us. But you what are you doing? Because for weeks, apparently, she has been, for like the last month, she's been talking about how she's autistic. And
I didn't even know that.
all of a sudden her content has been surrounded by the fact that, oh, now I have this clarity, now I'm autistic. There's been so many people who have been very supportive of her, and even I read some of the comments under that post, and people are still supportive of her. What I did my own research, because I saw that someone in the comments said that they have a child who is autistic, and that it is uh it is accepted in the community, the autism community, to self-diagnose. So I was like, okay, let me look into this because I don't know a lot about it. I know people who are on the spectrum, but not I haven't been I've n- uh, to your to what you said, like I've never lived with someone who was, or I've never been a caregiver to someone who was. So I don't have enough information to make an assessment either way, and I wouldn't want to because it's outside of my wheelhouse. So I did a little research. I can't remember. It was um it was a medical there were a lot of medical journals and things that I came across, but also there was a medical practice who has like a whole write up, a lot of literature on autism, and they said that self-diagnosis is common when it comes to autism because of the fact that um, because of the fact that it's expensive to be diagnosed. It's also expensive, I guess, the testing and whatnot is also expensive to if there is treatment needed. It's expensive. The access to care is limited to people who don't have the finances to seek it out. So some people do their research and go through certain factors, and I guess act in ways that would um, remedy the challenges that they might have due to autism, even though they haven't been clinically diagnosed. But it also said there are dangers in self diagnosing, as with anything else, as with any condition, as with anything that you experience that is medical in some way or clinical in some way, you can misdiagnose yourself. So they made the point to say if you haven't been diagnosed by a medical professional, you could be misdiagnosing yourself. It could be something else. Um, so you have to basically it said you have to still understand that a self-diagnosis is not a true diagnosis. And while you can move about the world as if this is something that you do experience, you don't really know, and it can be a problematic thing to self-diagnose. So that being said, if this is the conclusion that she has come to, and if the autism community, people who are affected by it, parents and caregivers of people who are affected by it, and medical professionals who deal with it, if that community has decided that self-diagnosis is acceptable, then I
Yeah,
don't
we
have
can't
anything
really
to
say.
say, like uh, however, big however,
Uh-oh.
as a public figure, and someone whose voice is their currency, you have to be responsible. The same way she would say that everybody else has to be responsible, she too has to be responsible. We didn't need to know anything about her being autistic. She brought that to us.
Yep.
So what offends me is you getting on somebody's show and them asking you point blank if you've been diagnosed and you lying about it. That's not deflection, that's a lie. Saying yes to a yes or no question when the
Right.
answer is no is a
Right.
lie.
And it doesn't look good on top of your, which again, I didn't know this, but it doesn't look good on top of your reputation, which you claim is people lying on you.
Right.
So you're saying I'm not difficult. You're saying my problem is I go into spaces with love, but people are not loving me back. including in the post I just read. Shannon Sharp, who does not love me, why would Shannon Sharp love you?
Also, Shannon Sharp made it very clear, yo, I tried to hug you and you don't want to hug me back. And then she awkwardly in the middle of the interview goes, "Can I get a hug?" That shit was weird. Sorry, that stuff was weird to me. I was just like, okay, this is I
It
don't
was
know what's
all
happening
weird. As
here.
a person who's not
I would
a
have cut
fan of
that out of the
her,
interview
and
too.
it was weird, and like it didn't look good for the things that she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I feel her. One of the things I thought was good about her storytelling, which she made sure to tell us multiple times, is I'm not telling you how I feel. I'm just telling you what happened. Which
Mm-hmm.
she contradicted at one point because she
Right.
said, when Issa Rae said that, it didn't make me feel good. It made me feel like this. But most of the stories she told, it was this happened, then that happened, then I did this, then
Mm-hmm.
they did that.
Right.
That's how stories are supposed to be. Very often, people do not tell stories that way.
Mm-hmm.
So that I thought was good. But then now, again, all of this doesn't look good. You already have this reputation. You're saying, like Monique, that these people uh, did this, these people created this narrative, and that has become the overwhelming problem in your career.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel you on that. But then you can't come up there and contradict yourself and lie.
And lie. I didn't like that it was a lie. I'm totally fine. I'm totally sorry. I'm totally okay with the fact that she didn't want to get into her business. Although again, you involved everybody when you got on the internet a month ago and started talking about how you realize that you experienced the world differently, that you did some research and this is what you landed on. And that's fine. I'm not saying that she shouldn't share if she wants to share. What I'm saying is you can't involve people and then later on be like, nah, 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 like, nah, that's not true. Or what, I don't care. You could give us as little or as much information as you want. I just don't want lies. So if what I think deflection would have been, I don't want to talk about that, Shannon.
Right.
And then it
Which
would
I
have
don't
been
know how you would have
confusing.
done that because you kept saying it.
But and then it would have been, I was just about to say, it would have been confusing for him, for us, because
Right.
again, you've been talking about it. It's a little weird to not want to talk about it now, but okay, if that's what you decided, then that's fine. We can't be mad at you because you want to keep your business as your business or you want to control the way you tell your business. But to say yes when the answer is no, that's a lie.
Yeah, I agree.
And I didn't like that because what
Yeah, I didn't
about
like
all
it.
the
And
people who have been supporting you and jumping to your defense and we didn't even get to all of the nuance and all of the these people don't like me and this and that. We
well, we could end it here and do part two Monday, or you could speak your piece very quickly. What would you like to do?
let's just do part 2 Monday cuz I feel like there's so many like different things that came up that it's
We're
not
going
gonna
to
be
dive in.
yeah, it's not gonna be easy to cover it in a few
Okay.
minutes. So